I'm Marcia Burkett. I'm the financial aid advisor here at the high school. I have had the pleasure of meeting some of you, and not all of you yet. How many of you have been through this financial aid process before with other children? And how many have others yet to come through the process, other than this class? Okay. Stay tuned, because next year it changes. So, learn what you learned for this year and for any previous ones, then forget that information and we'll go back and we'll start again. We'll cover next year, or previous year, in future years. As I mentioned, I'm the financial aid advisor here at the high school. Yes?
So, if you have a junior, this would not apply?
The basic concepts apply. The timing of your application will be different. And the information that you'll be using will be different. And if you want the details on that at the end, you're more than welcome to come down and I'll explain to you what will be different. You may hit the highlights of what may be different. Our speaker will hit them, but it's slightly different. Same concepts, same principles. You'll be learning a lot of the basic information. It's just the timing of applications and what financial information you'll be using will be slightly different next year.
It'll be the same, but they're using 2015.
Right, but different in the way you described it. So. For those of you that don't know, I have an office here in the high school. My office is actually upstairs. It's right next to the CIC. I'm here part-time. I work Monday through Thursday mornings, and I try to meet with people or arrange phone calls, try and arrange around their schedules if necessary, if my hours don't match with your hours. But please feel free to contact me if you ever want more information, more detailed information, want to speak about anything specifically. My contact information is on the front of the green folder, and it's on most of the paper that's in there that are generated from my office, so use those contact information. Yes, that is my direct dial. Yes, I play operator for the school many days a week with a phone number of 3200. I get all kinds of things. No, I can't take your child's attendance, but I can put you in the right direction. So keep that in mind, that is my direct dial, and leave a message if you'd like to. I'd like to thank LMC TV and Matt, who's here tonight videotaping, so that it will be rebroadcast on LMC TV, especially as we get into FAFSA filing season, which officially gets started on January 1st. So if you are into your public access station, please dial in. I'm sure that it'll be up on their schedule. My job here in the high school is to communicate about financial aid and about scholarship opportunities and be the scholarship facilitator for many organizations. Ways that I do that are through some of the printed information that you have. I have put up on the school's website. Through the counseling department's page, there is actually college, and then there's financial information in that college page. So most of this information is there. From time to time, I will send out emails, or usually the emails that are sent out now are through one call. So hopefully you were all signed up for that, and reminders and things like that I'll put in Tiger Bites for things that are opportunities. I also will sometimes reach out to your student directly. If they have been identified as a potential candidate for a scholarship, I also will reach out to the class as a whole about scholarship opportunities if they're appropriate for everyone in the class. So tell your students to check their emails. And I usually do that through the Naviance system. Whatever their email is in their Naviance account is this email that it will go to from my office. Get them to update that. They don't usually, because that account is established in sophomore year. So some of them kind of forget to update those. Let's see, I think that is most of that information. We're here tonight mostly to talk about funding for college. A college education is a major investment. It's probably one of the largest investments your family will be making for each of your children, or potentially each of your children. And there are a lot of things to keep in mind. This is the best time, if you haven't already had a conversation with your student, if finances are going to be a part of the decision of which college your student will attend, please have that conversation now. There is nothing worse than come springtime, and when it's getting close to actually putting a deposit on a college and having the conversation with your student then, because it is a very emotional one for everyone involved, from the parents to the students in it. I unfortunately have been a part of a few of those. So please have the conversation now. It's not to say we can't look at expensive schools or schools that are reach schools, but you want to make sure that the list of colleges that your child is applying to is a balanced list of schools financially as well as academically. So you want your financial safeties and you want your financial reaches along with your academic likelies and your academic reaches. So keep that in mind, please. If you need help developing maybe some of those financial safeties, I can help you. Most of the counselors are very well versed in schools in terms of cost and what might be affordable or what might provide other opportunities, financial funding. Another comment that the counselors are hearing a lot of and have asked me to address tonight is an ED application, an early decision application. That's the binding commitment application to a college and financial need. I do not recommend it if you need financial aid in order to go to college and you know that you need financial funding in order to go to that school, and I do not recommend it unless you have done some significant homework with that particular college. What you are signing is a legally binding agreement with the college. Many of the admission counselors or admission offices will say, oh, no worries, you can get out of this if it doesn't work out financially. I encourage you to educate yourself as to how you will be looked at as a need candidate, or your student will be looked at as a need candidate with regard to that school by using the college's cost calculator, which is online. There are some other cost calculators, but I just caution you that it's not that easy to get out of that contract, that legal contract with some of the colleges, although they make it sound very easy. And it's something that reflects upon the whole community, our whole school. If there are a lot of people who are signing these contracts and then come back and say, not me. A college will say, yeah, you're this needy, and you might feel that you're that needy, and you want to make sure that they're pretty close together when you're signing that contract.
But what is it that you recommend you don't do?
Do not apply under an early decision or an early decision to agreement, which is a legally binding agreement to apply early to a college. Early action is a non-binding agreement. Rolling decision is another one where you might be, and that's not to say you might not be submitting your applications early, but you don't want to be signing that contract not without some pretty good due diligence and some significant homework on where you stand with that particular school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I thought you mentioned checking the box on whether or not you had financial need, whether you were applying.
I did not mention that specifically, but I will say, please make sure you check the box if you know that you're going to be applying for financial aid. If you do not check the box and you apply for financial aid, there's a big disconnect, and that's the school may not have a tremendous amount of money set aside for you as an applicant.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When you're applying early decision, they ask, if you don't, what do they mean by financial aid? Like, do you mean like, if you give me money, that'd be nice? Or do you really need it? Or
well, that's why I'm suggesting that you do the research. Those cost calculator, every college is required to have a cost calculator. And by using that cost calculator, you will get a sense of how you as a student look to that college, that specific college, and what the cost might be.
But, no, I understand that. But when you were checking that box, that's really for need-based stuff. I mean, really need. I mean, as opposed to if you give it to me.
Well, there are some colleges that through their application process and their admission process, you're awarded merit scholarships. That's a whole separate piece, and you do not have to check the box. Then there's some theory about some schools it's helpful to check it, you might get more, but you have to kind of fish around with each school and figure out what their policies are. Yes?
I just have a question about those calculators, the cost calculators. Are they fairly reasonable? Are they giving you information that's so generic that you can't hand out?
I'm actually going to defer that question to our guest speaker when he comes up later in a little while. He will address that, and if not, we'll come back to that question later tonight. Okay? Let's see. In a few minutes, we're actually going to hear from our guest speaker, but right now, I actually would like to invite Lynette Say, who is the Vice President of Scholarships. Is that your official title?
I'm the treasurer.
She's the treasurer of the Mamaroneck Larchmont Student Aid Fund Scholarship Committee.
So thank you very much for giving me this chance to just talk for a few minutes about what our organization does. And who we are is we are a not-for-profit organization. We are separate from the school district. Sometimes there's some confusion and people think we're part of the school district, but we actually are an independent organization. but we work very closely with Mrs. Burkett. For over 75 years, we have been raising money to provide scholarships to MHS graduates who need financial assistance to attend college. And the money for the scholarships is donated by people who live in this community or work in this community, people who have had a close relationship connection to the high school. Our scholarships are based on financial need, so we're one of the few that it's not based on merit, it's just need. And they are scholarships, they are not loans, so they do not have to be paid back. They range, it depends every year in terms of how much we bring in, but generally they range in from $1,000 a year to $4,000 a year. And they're awarded for 2 years. So in total, a student could receive about $2,000 to $8,000 over the 2-year period. And just for your information, in 2015, in total, we awarded 46 student scholarships, totaling just over $150,000 a year or $300,000 for the 2-year period. So it's not an insignificant amount, and it does make a difference to a lot of students. I think you have more information on this green sheet that's in your folders. It tells you how to apply. It's very simple. There is an application, and the deadline is the last day in March, the last school day in March. This year is Thursday, March 31st. You can print out the application from our website, or Mrs. Burkett or your guidance counselors can help you get your students get an application. We also, the second part of this is there are required student interviews. These students should not be nervous about. They're fairly informal, they're conversations, so we just get to meet the student and hear about his or her plans for college. And these are, this year they will be held May 2nd and May 3rd, a Monday and Tuesday, and that's the one requirement we do have. The awards will then be determined and students will be notified in early June. And then we have the final step of this, and we'd like to have all students, if at all possible, attend the awards ceremony. The students and their families, and that will be held this round on Monday, June 13th. And we really urge you to take advantage of this program. Mrs. Burkett will give advice to your students and help with all the forms. So thank you.
Scholarships in general. There are lots and lots of scholarships out there. Some scholarships are awarded by colleges. Some are awarded by social, civic, religious, or ethnic groups, such as sororities and fraternities. Any scholarship that I know about, I put on Naviance. Some of them you may find on a national web-based search engine, which I have some resources in the materials that you have in your folder about web-based search engines. FastWeb is the one that I usually refer to first. First of all, it's easiest to say, and it's easiest to type into your URL in your computer. But there are a few others out there. Just don't be scammed by scholarship opportunities. There are all the web-based search engines can be another resource for your student to use to seek out other scholarships, but they tend to be on the very national and significant state level rather than the local and regional level. Naviance is where you'd find some of those local ones. In addition to the Student Aid Fund, we also have many other smaller organizations that do their own scholarships. I usually tell our students, check Naviance about the time of midterms. That's when I usually get a lot of those in. It's January, so hopefully the applications are done and now we can focus on some of the other stuff in addition to financial aid forms. But that, keep those in mind if you have questions, or if your student has questions, have them come see me. At this point, we would like to turn the evening over to our guest speaker, Michael St. John Turner from New York State Higher Education Services Corp, HESC, as it is affectionately known.
Hello everyone, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm coming up from New York City. Not too far from me, I actually live in Queens, big time Mets fan, and fighting through depression today after last night's game. My name is Michael St. John Turner. I work for New York State Higher Education Services Corporation. You see our logo up there on the PowerPoint, and you all should have a copy of this PowerPoint in your green folders. So you can follow along. Hopefully you can see well The organization, the state agency I work for, sometimes people see the word corporation and they think that I'm here to sell you something tonight. We're a state entity. We're part of the state agencies in New York. And we're an executive agency, which means we're under the governor's office. So we receive our marching orders directly from Governor Cuomo himself. And what we're in charge of doing on behalf of the state is administering all of the state financial aid opportunities that we provide. Things like TAP, Tuition Assistance Program, which we've been offering in New York now for over 40 years. We also have a growing number of merit-based scholarship opportunities that we administer through our office. And we also have our hands in a lot of other things, higher education, funding related. We are one of the overseers of the 529 College Savings Program here in New York State, in addition to a bunch of grant funding opportunities we provide to community-based organizations, high schools, things around college access. So we administer both federal and state dollars on that level. I've been in financial aid working since 2000, so I can't believe how fast time flies, but it's about 15 years now that I've been in aid. It's my first job, it's been my only job working in financial aid. So before joining New York State, I worked at Fordham University for a few years as a financial aid administrator, and I've been working with New York State now for almost 9 years. So I have a lot of experience on both sides of the coin, working for a college one-on-one with families to help them understand the process, and now working kind of on a top-down role from an administrative standpoint, helping manage funds, working with colleges, but also at night we do this community outreach part where we want to help families understand the process. So I'm here to talk tonight about financial aid. So if you follow along, when we talk about what financial aid is, we're talking about the money that helps families afford the ever-growing cost of attending college. What's important to understand about financial aid is there's sort of a split in the middle about the philosophy of programs and how to qualify for these programs. So on the one hand, we have a lot of folks that, that really support and go for what we call the need-based financial aid programs, where they believe that families who receive aid for college should demonstrate that they need this assistance. So in order to do that, we have programs like TAP here in New York State, the federal Pell Grant, which is coming through FAFSA. Those programs will look at family income as the sole determinant as to whether or not you get the money. So in order to see if you qualify for a need-based grant or a need-based scholarship, you need to submit some type of application where your income is going to be reviewed. So we'll talk a little bit about those two applications that are the most popular, the FAFSA, and there's also one called the CSS profile that's employed by many private colleges. Now on the other hand, there's a group, there's a lot of advocacy around what we call merit-based or non-need-based financial aid, where you can receive same types of programs, grants and scholarships, free money opportunities, but the qualifications for these programs have nothing to do with the income profile of a family. Rather, they have to do with other things that are unique or special about the student. So it could be things such as students' extracurricular volunteer activities that leads to a scholarship opportunity. Could be an essay contest or an essay they submitted for a scholarship. Could be as simple as Google runs a scholarship contest called the Doodle for Google contest, where if you have a son or daughter that's interested in the arts, they can draw those cartoons you see on the Google website. And nowadays they give up to $30,000 for finalists that are selected to have their drawings on the Google homepage. That's an example of a program where your child's grades, their test scores, your income are things that are not impacting your ability to get the money, it's just the drawing. As a matter of fact, I always like to cite Doodle for Google because that's a K-12 scholarship program. And so it's available for students to start submitting their drawings. As soon as they're in kindergarten, they award an early elementary grade cohort, a middle school cohort, and a high school cohort the award. So you can, and when we look at the last 2 years actually, 7th and 8th graders in Long Island have won for the middle schools, back-to-back years, the $30,000 for their drawings. So it's something that's out there. And the reason why I like to cite these as examples and talk about this difference between need and merit-based is because I've been doing this for many years, and I know many families are very focused on the need-based programs and are wondering how much their income is going to impact their ability to get aid for their children. So much so it almost seems obsessive that we're saying, well, if I own a house, I'm screwed. If we have both parents working, we're screwed. If we've saved up some money in our bank accounts, we're screwed. There's all these different kind of opinions, and it all has to do with need-based. Whereas we want to try to focus your energy, we can say, well, if you know your income's at a certain level, maybe we don't want to focus on trying to get you a Pell Grant, which we know might not be available to you from FAFSA. Maybe we want to focus your child's energy on all the different scholarship opportunities that are available based on merit. or matching them up to the right college that will look at their admissions application, think that they're a superstar, and provide them merit-based funding to encourage them to come to their college. So there are ways to work this, no matter what your income profile is. So it's important to realize that there's more to financial aid than just your income taxes and the FAFSA form. When we talk about the different financial aid opportunities, though, they're coming from different resources. So we have our federal and state government. Those are your two basic forms of financial aid that you would receive, are your FAFSA application to get federal money, your TAP application to get state money. Beyond the federal and state government, though, you have opportunities that come directly from the college. They label their funds institutional aid. That way you know where it's coming from. It's coming from the college. And also you have outside resources, and you heard a little bit about that before, when there's one program through the school that you can apply for. There are many other programs that I just cited. Which one do you think is the most important resource up here? Is it the feds? Is it me at the state? It's the college. It's the third one. Who charges the tuition? Who charges the room and board? It's the college. The college holds the key to discounting their cost. Any money you get from a college is discounting the price. So you would want to be working with colleges that are looking to give you the biggest discount off of their price. Especially when we talk about navigating the private school landscape. It's going to be trying to find that perfect fit with the perfect price that fits what you're looking for. Some colleges will be so enthusiastic about bringing in your student that they'll offer you money beyond your need. They'll offer you merit-based aid. They'll say, we know you needed a couple $1,000s based on your application, but instead of a couple thousand, we're going to give you 20. Because we want to give you an affordable offer, because we want to try to beat other schools based on price. Private schools know that some families are focused in on city and state universities, SUNY and CUNY, because they know their prices are very low. So they will intentionally offer merit-based aid to try to make sure that they give you a better price than if you were to send your child to the state school and have to pay full price because you didn't qualify for any federal and state government aid. At CUNY and SUNY, the federal and state aid resources are the backbone of their financial aid programs, right? So when you ask a student who's going to SUNY or CUNY, are you getting financial aid? They're going to be saying things like, yes, I get Pell and TAP from my FAFSA and from my New York State TAP application with HESC. Those are the two key grants that most students are receiving. If you don't qualify for those two things, you may be stuck with the full price of the college if they're not going to give you any institutional aid. And then here's the other thing about SUNY. SUNY doesn't have that much money to give an institutional aid. So the money that they have is available to a select group of students. And usually when they're giving up, I've seen a student get a presidential scholarship from a SUNY school, and I'm like, wow, that must be a lot of money. And then we look at it, it's $1,000 off of $25,000, $24,000, whatever it costs for all of the expenses. So it's important to realize that, and that's why when you heard before from Ms. Burkett that when we're applying, it's good to have a diverse selection of applications to colleges. You know, colleges that are SUNYs, colleges that are private, all different price ranges in and out of New York, so you have some choices when it comes down to choosing the right school for your children. Just to define terms, I've mentioned the word scholarships and grants a few times. Those are free money programs. If your child receives a scholarship or grant, it's free. There are responsibilities attached to specific awards though, so if you're going to get a big time scholarship from a college, the devil is always in the details. Know what they require in order to receive the funds. You may have to renew applications like the FAFSA and CSS profile every year in order to renew grants or sometimes scholarships. Scholarships are usually coming with a GPA requirement that's attached to it. You always want to find out, well, what if my kid messes up one semester? Is there a probationary period? Can they get back on track? You want to know those details. You don't want to find out that your kid missed the grade point average by 0.1 and is now kicked out of the scholarship and can't ever get it back. So you want to know these things before you commit and before you accept those offers. But when you're also applying for financial aid, you're applying for programs to help you pay for college, and not all of them will necessarily be free. We have self-help programs like work study and student loans that will help families find the funding that's needed to pay the college, to pay the bill. Work study is a program where the student themselves would work through the college. They would earn money through a special work study grant that's given to them by the financial aid office, and they would use those funds to pay for their day-to-day expenses, things like books, personal expenses. It's an optional program, not every student has to do it, but it's a pretty cool program because they can work for jobs on campus that are related to what they're studying. So if you have a son or daughter, they say, oh, I'm interested in business, they can work for a college's business office, see the ins and outs, work with the accountants that work for the colleges if they want to be a CPA, And there's different angles to this that would help them get work experience and help getting a nice resume going. The loans, of course, we're going to get into those a little bit later. It offers families the opportunity to borrow money from the federal government, or there are also private ones available where you would be paying it back plus interest. And we'll get to those a little bit down the line. But let's start with a conversation about need-based financial aid. And why are we going to focus on this? Because oftentimes families believe that they may not qualify because they simply don't understand how the system works. So we're going to explain how this works and exactly how colleges are evaluating your ability to pay. The first thing that you need to realize, if you're a first-timer at this, some parents, you've been through this process and you may have learned this lesson the hard way, is that when you're filing for financial aid, I always tell my families, I trust you when you tell me, when I ask you how much money you think you can give to help your kid, you're the best judge of your finances. Would you say that's correct? Not the government, right? Well, when you file for financial aid, they're going to say that they're going to judge your finances. And you're not going to have any say as to whether or not they decide if that number's too high, low, or whatever. So most people are not happy with their evaluation, but just know it's out of your hands. You're submitting your form, it's going through their process, and they're going to evaluate it. Now, the federal government is one evaluator of families' finances, that's through FAFSA. The other evaluator of your finances is the college themselves, those colleges that require the CSS profile. So you might have, if you're applying, let's say, to a school like NYU, NYU uses both the FAFSA and CSS profile, so you'll have two different evaluations going on. And sometimes we have families that look really good on FAFSA. They'll say FAFSA doesn't think you have much money to pay for your kid's college, but then you do that profile thing, and the college may come back to you, NYU in this example, may say, well, based on your profile, we think that FAFSA gave you a nice break, but we don't believe that the FAFSA is accurate because we collected more information on this profile and we've made a different determination. So you have to be aware that there's different views going on. There's the institutional view, there's a federal view. What happens is depending, the outcome of these applications is to determine what they believe a family can contribute financially toward their child's college. And they call that the expected family contribution. What they do is a very simple formula. The contribution of the family subtracted from the cost of attending that college, the resulting number is how much you need in need-based programs. It's not what you qualify for in aid, because for all I know you get a scholarship from the college that's based on merit. This is just you saying we need help to pay this college. Well, they're going to say let's look at your numbers and let's look at our cost and see if you really do need help. The first part of that equation is the cost. Tuition and fees, room and board, book supplies, personal transportation expenses. That's typically what colleges are putting in the sticker price. Most families do not pay the sticker price though. Sticker prices usually scare the heck out of families, but it's not what families end up paying. Families end up paying what we call the net price or the net cost, and that's the difference between the sticker price minus the grants and scholarships, the free money opportunities that you're receiving to reduce that price. So you pay the discounted price. And your goal as families is to pick the college that in the end gives you the biggest discount and gives you the lowest net price. Now you have some control over some of these expenses. You can't tell a college what they're going to charge you in tuition, but you can decide whether your kids are going to stay local for college or whether they're going to go away. And if they go away, you have decisions about whether they go to a college in a small town where the cost may not be that much to live there, or whether you're sending them to destination places like Miami, Los Angeles, down in New York City, because you'll pay higher room and board for location colleges, right? So you have some decision on that. You also have some decisions about things like transportation and books and supplies. There's a really good tip list. I was looking inside the green folder that Ms. Burkett has put together for you that gives you some tips about where to shave some costs off of these different expenses. So there is some room there. With tuition and fees, you have decisions about whether they choose to go to state schools versus private schools, whether they go in New York or out of New York, and if they go out of New York, out-of-state schools could be just as expensive as a private college because you'll be paying the out-of-state rate. So those are things to keep in mind when you're selecting colleges. My point is to make sure you have a good mix of options where students might be okay if they get to stay home but they get to go to a nice college. Something that my family did for me is, I graduated from Fordham University, but the trade-off for me was I got to go to Fordham if I stayed home and they didn't have to pay the extra 18 grand a year to live on campus, especially because I was already living in the city, living in Queens. It was a little bit more of a commute, but I got a car out of it, so hey, I took the deal. Now, the expected family contribution part of it, this is the part that you can't control. Remember, this is going to be the view of the FAFSA, the view of the college as to what they believe you can contribute financially based on the information you put on those forms. Whatever they tell you on FAFSA stays the same across colleges, so if they believe you can contribute $10,000 a year, the schools that use FAFSA are going to say, we're going to base your financial aid off of that $10,000 per year contribution. I haven't met any family who's happy with their contribution. I've never met a family that said, hey, the government said we could pay $15,000. That's exactly right. The only people that are happy are those who get zero. And they're like, see, I told you we're broke. We don't have any money for college. We'll see what it comes out to. Here's just a very rough example of an eligibility chart. Once you have an idea of what your financial contribution is going to be, your EFC, you can then start just lining that up against the different costs of colleges that you're considering and seeing whether or not you qualify for need-based aid. Let's say, for example, you're really on the top end of income, and instead of your EFC being $10,000, let's make it $50,000. With a $50,000 contribution, you may not be able to get money at colleges that cost what college A and B do, but how about a college C? Let's make college C NYU's cost of attendance, or Sarah Lawrence, where it's between $70,000 and $75,000 a year. I think Sarah Lawrence may be near 80 now, right? NYU I know is 72. I checked that one the other day if they live on campus. So if you're being charged $72,000 a year to send your kid down to the city, live there, if you have a $50,000 contribution, do you qualify? Do you need help at that college? According to this formula. Yes, you do. You need $22,000, right? So even if you have higher income, that's why when I talk to my colleagues, financially we're a very small community, we all know each other. I have directors who are at some of these private schools, they say, look, I have families that make $250,000, $300,000 a year, and we're giving them need-based grants because they submitted a FAFSA. Then I have other ones that make the same amount of money, we give them nothing because they never applied. Sometimes families will shoot themselves in the foot and just simply say, we're not going to get anything from FAFSA, so why the heck should we apply? Well, of course, I can guarantee you will get zero aid if you fill out no applications. So there may be a sliver of room for you to get some assistance at the college. You don't know unless you go through the process. So let's talk about that process. FAFSA time is January, you just heard that. And FAFSA is the application where most seniors are filling out to submit their initial request for financial aid. Every college, whether it's a public college or a private college that offers a need-based financial aid program, will ask you to do the FAFSA. But remember, we'll talk a little bit later about those that ask you to do FAFSA plus the CSS profile. Right now we're talking about FAFSA. FAFSA is a federal form. It's done on the federal government's website. They release it on January 1st, but they leave it up to the colleges to tell you when to have it submitted. So each college maintains their own financial aid due dates, deadlines. Usually they call it the priority filing deadline. Get your financial aid application in by this date. Now, some colleges want it really early. Some private schools want it by the beginning of February. They give you just a month. They're masochists, right? Some colleges give you to the end of March. They're very liberal. They're like, hey, take a few months, get your taxes done, and then come see us later. You want to make sure you know those deadlines, and if you could wait a little while, then you could wait. But if you have to do it really early, and if you're applying to private schools, you might have to, you're going to try to do your best to submit this thing online as soon as you can after January 1st. This is the website. Yes?
How do you submit it to the colleges?
So you go here on the FAFSA.gov, and you're going to submit your information, and you'll see when we talk about the breakdown of the parts of FAFSA, there's a section that asks you to list the names of the colleges you would like to send this application to. And it's all done through the internet. So it's all done online, and it's done within 3 days. That's the beauty of filing online, is 3 days after you submit your form, those colleges you list will have a digital copy of it. So it's very quick transmission. And that leads me to the point I recommend that you file it online. I know some families nowadays in the age of identity theft, information security, might feel that your information may be compromised if you're filing online, especially because you do have to use things like social security numbers and other personal identifying information. Now, some of you might be better at maintaining the security of your network than others. If you're Wi-Fi paranoid, just connect the Ethernet cable. But filing online is the way to go. Over 97% of filers use the online system because it only takes 3 days for it to be sent out to your college, and you get an instant response from the form. It tells you what you qualify for, everything like that. If you file on paper, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for them to get back to you. So there's a remarkable difference. Yeah?
And all the colleges are filed at the same time?
You can file up to 10. We're going to have that, but I'll talk about it now since you're asking. So they'll give you 10 blank spaces to put names of colleges that you are considering at the time. Because when you're filing this in January, if you're under the regular admission decision cycle, regular admission, not early. Early you'd already know, because they'd already tell you if you're going to be going there or not. If you're under regular admission, you wouldn't know in early January which schools are taking you yet or which schools are denying you. So you're going to be putting the names of colleges that you're still in the process of considering or that you're in the process of applying to. And they'll have that form ready that if they do start the review cycle, they'll be able to download it for your child. Now, if you need more than 10, it's a two-step process. You submit the form with the first 10 names that you need to send a copy to, and then you wait 3 days for them to get their copy. Then you come back to the same form, you log back in, we'll use the login button, and then you erase the names of the 10 schools that you know have already gotten a digital copy, and then you replace them with the next 10 schools. And you rinse, wash, and repeat as often as you need to, right? Now, the whole point of filing the FAFSA is to get federal money. Federal programs that are free programs are the Pell Grant and something called the SCOG grant. The SCOG grant and the Pell Grant, I'm always upfront with my families. They're really aimed to lower income families, lower income students. The government has a different view of what's considered lower or middle or high income than what we do as New Yorkers, right? I already told you I work out of New York City, so I'm used to hearing from families. We live in New York City, we live in Westchester, I also work out in Long Island, and we know the regional differences. We know it costs a heck of a lot of money to live in New York. They don't care. They're not basing it on what us New Yorkers believe is low or middle income. They're using a different national kind of average. And I always like telling my New York families, yes, you may be struggling with what you make here in New York, but if you move to Alaska, I'm sure you'd be living very comfortably. So the feds are always considering national averages and things, not what us New Yorkers pay. So when they're looking at Pell Grant eligibility, I always tell my families, typically speaking, if your income is around $50,000 or less, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a Pell Grant if you're only sending one child to college. Now, the federal government does divide the income of the household depending on how many kids you have going to college. So let's say you make $100,000 a year, but you're sending 2 kids to college. Now, all of a sudden, you weren't Pell eligible for the first kid, but when the second kid goes, now all of a sudden they can both now get a Pell Grant. So it puts you in a different income bracket. So that's typically around that. You could still be eligible if you're a little over 50, but the further you start getting away from 50, then all these other things you can, I have some families that have big household sizes. If you have 10, 15 kids, you might make $100,000 and still get a Pell Grant, right? So if that's you, or like that TLC show, the like 80 kids and counting or whatever it is, that guy might make 200 grand and I'm sure he's getting Pell Grants for his kids. So they do consider things like family size and stuff like that. Generally speaking, work study and student loans, depending on the need of the family, they assign work study. And depending on need, they can assign either a subsidized or unsubsidized loan opportunity. Subsidized loans, of course, are the most desirable because they carry no interest charges while the student's in school. Unsubsidized is the opposite. When the student borrows the money, as soon as it's paid to the college, they start assessing interest quarterly every 3 months. You don't have to pay these loans until after they graduate, but with an unsub loan, if you ignore it for 4 years, when you go back and look at the balance, you're going to see you owe a lot of outstanding interest. So you always want to, if they're taking out an unsub loan, they'll send you a quarterly interest statement. It'll be like $15, $10 every couple months, every 3 months. You can just pay that down. Because if you don't, what they do is they do capitalization. They add all the unpaid interest back to the principal and then charge you interest on that. So you pay interest on interest, and it gets a little nasty. Then, of course, we have loans for parents. They call them PLUS. So the parent loan for undergraduate students, that would be your loan as a parent. Federal loans, we'll talk about these in a moment. I have a whole screen I think we'll dedicate to the loans, but with the loans we always advise smart borrowing, and always borrowing considering the family budget. You always know your budget, so if you're considering borrowing loans, use loan payment recalculators to predict what's going to be the payment after your kid graduates to see if that's something that's sustainable, something that you can manage with your family's budget. If it's something that's going to break your family's budget, then you may want to consider another college option. But let's focus in now on the FAFSA. The first step of FAFSA, and I always like doing these when we have veterans in the room, parents that have done this already, because the feds always find a way of throwing something new at you. This year's new thing is no more pins. So my parents that have FAFSA pins and have been through the pin process and have written down all their pins and have a pin cheat sheet, you can throw that out. Because now they want you to do this new thing called the FSA ID. So they're trying to change the process where instead of having to log into FAFSA, putting in the name, date of birth, social security number, PIN number, they want you to just create a simple username and password, which follows the kind of security standards used by Amazon and other online websites. The thing is in order to make one of these things, you have to go through layers of an account building process. You still have to register using your social security number, date of birth. They want you to use security questions, create your own security questions. So the PIN, it used to take like 5 minutes to register, is 1 page. This thing I'm finding families taking an average of 15 to 20 minutes to do. And you need 2 of these. You need one for the student, you need to make their account, and you need to make one for the parent that's helping them through this process. Just like the PINs, you needed a parent PIN, you need a student PIN. Now you need a parent FSA ID, and now you need a student FSA ID. If you had a parent PIN before, you can make the process go faster for you by linking your old PIN to the new user ID, and they would pre-fill all of your name, your address, because you're in the system. So you want to do that. And if you've never heard of a PIN, you'll go through the longer process of building your FSA ID using the same info that parents use to make their PINs. Now PINs are back in the day. Any questions about the FSA ID?
But you can't do any of this until January 1st.
You can do this now.
You can.
You can register now. So you can register for FAFSA now, and I would recommend that you do it. And then, of course, have it stored away somewhere so you know what your username ID and password is, what your child's is. And then you'll be set, so that way in January you don't have to go through the first 40 minutes of this, get a headache from it, and then now have to go on to the FAFSA. Yeah.
So I have a PIN. You're going to ask me for my PIN and then link my info that's already in there.
Yeah, it's not required, but if you want to make it faster for you, they'll say if you remember your PIN, put it in here, and then they'll pre-fill all your name and other information. So it makes it easier for you. And then your PIN will be gone forever after that. So the other thing you need to know besides the registration process is the documents that are needed and what are they reviewing generally. So the most important part besides identity information, that's pretty much straightforward, is the income information and asset information of families. There are a couple things to note here. First is noting the year that they're looking at. So when you're filing this in the new year, they want prior year tax information. So remember, you're filing FAFSA in 2016, so it's prior year, 2015. So they want income tax information for your future tax return, not the current one that you've done, the one that you're going to do in the near future, February, March, April, whenever you get around to it. It will benefit you immensely if you file your taxes as early as you can in tax filing season. Now, generally there are 2 types of tax filers. Those who are very quick to file their taxes and those who are dragging their feet to file their taxes because they're going to have to pay something in the end. Or you have a very complicated financial situation. Maybe you own a business or some Chapter S corporation or something like that. However you do it, they do allow you to still use estimates if you don't have your tax information available at that point in time. So let's say we're looking at January, you want to file it early, you need to file it early. You could use your prior year tax information, which is your 2014s, which you've already done this past April, hopefully, or by October if you extended. And you'll use that to then base your income estimates off of. Only do that if you've been working in the same job and typically your income stays the same every year, give or take a few $1,000s. But if you've changed job situations or you've had spikes in income this year where your 2014 is not going to reflect your income, you may want to find a different way of estimating. Now, there are ways to do that. You could look at your last pay stubs from December, which shows your year-to-date earnings. If you have a business, you could look at your gross receipts up to that time. If you use QuickBooks, any kind of accounting things that, account for what you've earned in your business or self-employment, if you track that very well. Or you could just go ballpark. I think we made $55,000 this year, and I think we're going to be paying, $2,000 in taxes, and submit it like that. The point is to submit it. Do your best, give it your best estimate. Now, if your estimate is way off, you might get really happy when they tell you you're eligible for this, this, and this, but then later, what you're supposed to come back later on when you do your taxes, you're going to fix your numbers. They have an automated way of doing that. Then they'll start taking money away from you. So you want to make sure your estimate is as close as possible to what you really think is going to show up on your taxes come tax time. Now, some families are lucky, where we don't need to know about your assets. Some families are unlucky, where we will ask about your assets. So it all depends on where they bracket you for income. You'll know when you're filing FAFSA, they're going to give you a very magical question. It'll say, do you want to skip the rest of the questions about your assets? If you get that question, by all means say yes. You never want to tell the government more than what they need, and they're giving you a free pass for a reason. But if you don't get that question, then it might automatically open up things where they start asking about cash and savings accounts, other investment accounts, real estate investment property amounts. It'll open up additional questions about your asset portfolio. Now, a couple things here to note. For assets, they want to know the value of accounts or investments or real estate properties the day that you file the form if you were to go liquid. So if you were to liquidate all your assets, if I were to cash out my stocks today, how much money would I get for that? How much cash would I get for that? If I were to sell this property that I'm holding on to as an investment property today, how much would I get for it after the debts on that property have been resolved, after I've paid off the bank for what's owed on it? Sometimes with property it could be zero because it's underwater on its mortgage. So those are things to consider. They do not want to know about two important things: retirement account balances and primary residence values. So if you're a homeowner and you just own the home that you live in, your primary residence, you can have the thing paid off, full equity, it could be worth $1.5 million. God bless you, they don't care. They're not going to ask about it. But if you have two properties, when you live in one that's considered an investment property, then that second property that's not your primary residence is up for valuation on the form. So you'll have to be prepared to answer questions about that. And when we look at property values, we're typically trying to look at what the county would value for property tax assessment. So what are they saying it's worth? Sometimes families will lowball it a little bit, say, oh, it's not worth that much. Sometimes the colleges may disagree with you if they do some checking on public property tax records and they feel like you're being taxed at a certain rate, but you're not reporting it at that rate. So you do have some room there to discuss with colleges why you've assessed property at that value if you do have investment property. For retirement accounts, they don't want to know about 401ks, 403bs, Roth IRAs, self-simple retirement plans. If you have annuities, life insurance, all of that's off the books here. They don't want to know about it. So just make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot by putting your retirement money. Now, if your retirement money is all in your mutual fund or in your money market account, that's considered an ordinary investment, right? It has to be in that tax-deferred retirement savings plan or an annuity or life insurance, something of that nature. So that's what's off limits. So just be careful what you report. We see sometimes families make errors here. Now, they're not only looking at parent income and assets, they will request student income and assets. Student income, if your child worked, maybe they worked over the summer, they'll get a little W-2 from their job. It may not necessitate them filing taxes, because you know, it's usually around $6,000. If a kid earns more than $6,000 every year, they have to file taxes if you claim them as a dependent. But if they earn a couple $100, you'll just need it as a formality. You need to report, yes, they worked over the summer, they earned $466.73, whatever it is, whatever it says on box 1 of the W-2. But if they have account balances, they could ask, depending if you're lucky or unlucky. If you're lucky, they'll skip the questions. If you're unlucky, they'll ask, how much does your child have in these same accounts? If you talk to any financial aid professional, student-owned accounts are the worst type of accounts that you can have come financial aid time. And what am I talking about? UGMAs, UTMA custodial bank accounts, trust funds. Sometimes for tax reasons they're great all these years, but now comes the financial aid forms and they're going to have a field day with you with student-owned accounts. Why? Because when they look at parent income and assets, they're doing a profile of your family. They're considering the fact that you live in New York, you pay a lot of money to live here, you have a family, you have mouths to feed, so you're also, they look at your age, they consider the fact that if you're a little bit older, you might not have a lot of money available to pay for college. So you're getting a small percentage of your income and assets being, saying that you can use that small percent to pay for college. Small percent, usually it's less than 5%. But for students don't have all these troubles, right? They don't have as many gray hairs as we do. So what they say is your child with a nice fat bank account can cash out their accounts to the percentages of 20 to 25% per year. So if your kid has $100 stashed away, in your contribution guaranteed will be $20 to $25 of that as part of it. So when we look at students who are ineligible for need-based aid, it's usually because they had to, in the end, report their trust fund, report their UGMA bank account balances. One thing you need to be careful will come up here as a common question in a moment. 529s. 529s, they're always treated as parent-owned assets, no matter how you have the account set up. So 529s have two names on it. It has the account holder or owner and the beneficiary. Usually, traditionally, parent is the account owner or holder and the student is the beneficiary. No matter how it's set up though, they always tell you to put that money as a parent-owned asset so it gets the less aggressive treatment in the process. So that's the one thing that won't hurt you as much. A lot of people think, oh, if we saved in a 529, they're going to have a field day with us when we file for aid. Not the 529, it's your kid's UTMA or UGMA account. It's your custodial account that's doing that. It's the trust fund that grandma set up for them. That's what's really wrecking their eligibility for aid. So those are things. Now what I always say is, remember the rule for FAFSA. What's the rule for FAFSA? How much is in your bank account when? Is it today? The day you file the form. So if you have control over custodial assets, you might make some decisions not to contribute to that asset anymore. Maybe you decide to pull the money out and roll it into your own assets if you're allowed to do that. So you would want to make those maneuvers prior to filing the FAFSA. Now you're allowed to spend your money, you're allowed to move your money. The only thing you can't do is make your money disappear. So we can't go pull a Mitt Romney and open up all these offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands or whatever it is, because there's all sorts of legal implications to that. But you can say, look, I was putting money in my kid's savings account and we decided that it was better in my own investments. I decided to put it in my own mutual fund. Okay, you get the 5%, you save yourself the 20% kick from the FAFSA, right? You can do that, that's within the rights. But if your money goes from 10,000 to 0, we better get a video clip of you burning your money in your backyard showing that's where the money went, because we're going to want to know where did the money go. So if they're looking at things that have interest reported, they want to know, of course, does the interest reported on your taxes correspond to the asset value that you're reporting? So, the fun part of FAFSA, FAFSA students work. Most of it is the student. And I know a lot of parents are doing this for their kids, but really, your kid can sit down and they can do this with their eyes closed because they're so used to filling out this information. Their name, their emails, their name of their high school. It's a lot of basic stuff. The names of the colleges, we spoke about that. There's this one special section I'll call out in a moment. It's a dependency section where they want to know if the student has a special circumstance that may qualify them to file on their own. We'll talk about that in a moment though. The parent part tends to be the harder part, and that's where the kid would hand the keyboard over to you, and you would start filling out things about your marital status, your name, your date of birth, basically your family profile that we've been talking about, your income and assets, and then of course the student's income and assets. And then the last part's where you sign it. Because we're doing everything online, you sign it using those FSA IDs, your username and your password. You just throw in your password, you sign it. So that's how they consider it signed. Now remember, once your taxes are done, you have to update your FAFSA. And the way that you do that is by using this special feature called the IRS retrieval tool, data retrieval tool. What it does is once you tell your FAFSA, you probably can't see it very well in the handout because it looks very small. But once you tell them that you've already completed your taxes for tax year 2015, they'll open up a new pop-up box for you with a couple questions for you to answer. You use your username and password to link your application to the IRS computer. And once you do that, you get something called the IRS retrieval tool. They'll find your taxes on the IRS database. They'll say, is this your tax form? You'll say, yes, it is. You'll link it back to your FAFSA, and all of the numbers they need from your taxes will be automatically corrected to the right numbers that they're looking for, with a notice on it that says it comes directly from the IRS. That's the gold standard of updating your forms. Now you could always go yourself and change your numbers, but if you do it that way, colleges reserve the right to review your taxes anyway to make sure that you put the right numbers. They won't trust that you did a good job. So if you get it from the IRS, then they'll trust that you can do it. Once you file your taxes, if you do it electronically, you have to wait about 2 weeks to use this feature. So as soon as you're done with the account, wait a couple weeks, then try to do the correction of the FAFSA. So, after hearing all this wonderful stuff, you're going to say things like, I don't think we should even bother with this FAFSA thing. Remember what I said in the outset. Many families oftentimes think because of income and asset information that they may not qualify, but remember our example. If the school costs 70 grand and they think you could contribute 50 grand, which is an outlandish figure, you still qualify for $20,000 in a need-based grant. But if you never filed your FAFSA, you'll never get that grant. I can guarantee that. So the other thing you need to know is if you're planning on using the loans as a way of paying for college, whether it's the student's loan, your thing is like, hey, I want you to have some responsibility, I want you to borrow some money towards your college, you need a FAFSA for that. The FAFSA is the initial loan application for federal student loans. And lastly, you need to talk to the college before you make a decision not to file a FAFSA. Let's say the college is going to give you a nice, juicy, merit-based scholarship. They may, as a condition of the scholarship, still require you to file FAFSA because they want to make sure that you're not eligible for $50 in a Pell Grant. If you're eligible for any stitch of federal grant dollars, they're going to remove it from the scholarship. So they want to know for sure that you won't get any of that Pell Grant money or any TAP money, so they may make it a condition that you file in order to fulfill your scholarship obligations. The other question that we get is related to adulthood and independence of the student. Sometimes this comes from parents. Sometimes parents say, look, you know, if I go to set my kid up to live in California, put them on their own, have them do their own taxes, hey, can they get financial aid by themselves? You need to know the rule of 24. Until a student reaches the age of 24, they're always considered to need the information of parents, regardless of where they're living, regardless of their financial situation. The only students who are allowed to file on their own under the age of 24 are those considered to have a valid special circumstance that shows the government that they cannot use their parents' information. Some of these things are being in foster care, being a ward of the state, students that are under a legal guardian that was assigned by the New York State Family Court System. So there are different things that a student can have, but if a student just simply lives with another relative because they can't get along with a parent, doesn't mean that we can necessarily qualify them to be independent. We may still need them to get their parents' information. If we do have students that are dealing with issues that may involve them, may restrict their ability to apply for financial aid because of parents' information, always talk to the counselors here at the school. They'll hear what's going on. There may be things that they can do for you and things they can provide for you here at the school, especially if you're dealing with situations of being homeless or unaccompanied. So there are things that they need to know if you're dealing with any struggles that's going to stop you from filing for financial aid when they start asking about your parents' info. The other part here is a big question. The number one question I get from parents is about how to represent yourself on the form, given all the different marital status and how is it required for you to fill out the form. If you're a single parent, if you're married, remarried. So the first thing you need to know is if you're a single parent, you have options to put yourself as single, separated, divorced, or widow. Those are the 4 single parent options. And when you use one of those 4, they're going to ask the student to say, well, which parent are you going to tell us about today? Is it your mom or is it your dad? And the form will only follow information for that specific parent. Once you tell them that you have a single parent situation, they will exclude the information for the non-custodial parent and only request information for the custodial parent based on residential custody. So they're looking at which parent does the student live with, either by court decision or by just family practice. The kids live with mom, dad is considered the non-custodial. It doesn't matter who's claiming who on taxes. Sometimes you have situations where the students will live with one parent, but for income or divorce agreement reasons or whatever it is, the other parent that's the non-custodial is claiming the kids in the household. That's fine, but we would only use the mom's info. We wouldn't ask, in that example, if it's mom that lives with the kids, dad that handles all the finances, but he doesn't live there, we would use mom's income. And if mom's not working, then the student's going to look really great on this application. This is how FAFSA does it. We're going to talk about the CSS profile. CSS profile does a different approach. CSS profile will still ask for the custodial parent's info as their primary parent, but will still request what they call a non-custodial parent supplement, which is a form that would be filled out exclusively by the non-custodial parent, privately kept from the information from the student and parent. They won't know what the non-custodial puts, but it's still required for them to put their information, and colleges may look for a contribution from a non-custodial parent. Same thing comes up, well, what if I don't talk to that parent? What if there's no relationship? What if there's a restraining order? You would talk to the counselors if there's going to be a barrier to you filling out the profile because they're asking for non-custodial parent information. So you can see there's a difference between how the private schools look at it and how schools that use FAFSA look at it. Mostly the SUNYs and CUNYs use the FAFSA exclusively, some private schools use the FAFSA exclusively, but some colleges that are on the private side do use both. They'll use the CSS profile and the FAFSA. Oh, I also forgot to mention the 2-parent statuses. 2-parent statuses are, you don't have to be married anymore to have 2-parent households, you just have to live together. So the feds have said if both parents live in the same house, you can call it whatever you want. Married, best friends, lifelong partners. If you have 2 parents in the house, you're both the parents of this lovely child, you're including your financial information regardless of how you file it. Sometimes parents that are unmarried can file as head of household, single, however you do it. Doesn't matter if you live in the same house, we join those taxes and we add those numbers on the form. Step parents, you're part of the family, we're looking for family contributions. If you're legally married to somebody that has kids that are of college age, you are required to include your information on the form, regardless of your relationship with your stepchildren. If you don't like them, they don't like you, you still have to be on the form. So the other thing we get, we spoke about this already, remember with assets, report what they need, not what they don't. Your home and retirement accounts, tax-deferred retirement accounts are off limits. And 529s, never make the mistake of putting 529s under student-owned assets. Remember, you're always going to put it under the parent-owned assets when they ask for it if you have one of them. Now, shifting gears from federal to state, when you're on that same FAFSA form, you're going to get to the very end, and if you've listed that you live in New York, and you've listed at least one New York located college, whether it's a public or private college, you'll have this special task in your taskbar that'll show you, you can link your FAFSA information to do your state application. So it's kind of like when you do your taxes with your accountant. First you do your federal return, and then he links you over to do your state. It's the same when you file for federal and state financial aid. You'll get a pop-up window directly from FAFSA with your anytime on the tap application, anytime tap on the web application. Most of it will be pre-filled because it carries the information over from your FAFSA. This is only if you're applying to colleges that are located in New York State. If your college list of 10 is all out-of-state schools, you will not get the ability to apply for TAP. TAP is another needs-based program. We do look at a higher range of incomes than does FAFSA because we know in New York, New Yorkers tend to make a little bit more money, and we could throw in an additional $5,165 of aid toward the student's college financial aid offer if they're staying in New York for their education. For some families qualify for this, this could be a big hook to keep your kid in the state for their college and save some money. If it's a SUNY school, like I mentioned before, a lot of SUNY students are receiving TAP as one of their primary financial aid offers. So it's important that you file for it. You might be surprised that you qualify for it. We do not look at assets. We look at line 37 of your New York State income taxes. That's the only income figure we're going to look at for the typical family. We will consider public pensions if you are retired NYPD, FDNY. They will look at that additional information if you have any pension income coming from public resources. So that's the other thing that they could potentially look at. But generally speaking, for the typical family, it's line 37 of your New York State IT 201, and that will determine whether you qualify or not. We also offer a growing variety of options that are merit-based. So we have our scholarship and incentive programs, and the governor just introduced 2 new ones this past budget cycle, the AIM Scholarship and the Masters in Education Teaching Incentive Scholarship. These programs are designed to encourage students to think about staying in state for their college education with the goal to keep them here in New York after they graduate. So that way they can contribute to New York's economy, start their families here, grow their roots. These programs, purely merit-based. So if your child, for example, finishes in the top 10% of the senior class and they're interested in going to a state school to study STEM-related majors, they can do the STEM Incentive Scholarship where we pay, the state will pay full tuition for 4 years at the state school. So the first $8,000, whatever it comes out to at the end of the day, for every year for 4 years, the state will pay that from that scholarship. No matter if you make $1 million a year or if you're a low-income family. It's a merit-based program. Yeah?
Is that only SUNY schools or any New York?
The STEM is unique to SUNY or CUNY. So if they want to go to the city, they want to go to Baruch College or Hunter College or whatever it is, but it's for SUNY or CUNY. Our AIM Scholarship is open for public or private colleges in New York. It's a smaller amount, it's a little more humbler scholarship, but it's also available to students, for example, that have taken AP exams and scored 3 or higher in 2 or more AP exams, graduate in the top 15% of their class, or maintain, I think, at least a 90 or higher grade point average by the time they graduate. So it's going to be open to a lot more students, but it's something that you need to apply for separately on our website. So I mentioned the STEM incentive. The way that you apply for any of these special scholarship programs is directly through the state website. So unlike TAP, remember TAP you're doing through FAFSA. For scholarship opportunities, if you have a senior, you want to start looking at our website now. You click under the Pay for College part, the Grants and Scholarship Programs in New York State, and you'll see the full list of awards that we offer. We also have more programs that are unique to certain families. Deceased or disabled, police officer, firefighter, EMS. So sometimes we have a student whose parent was like a New York City police detective, got hurt on the job, now is retired, is on disability pension. We have a full scholarship to go to any state school for families like that. Families that were affected by the World Trade Center, whether you're a first responder, you got disabled as a result of being a first responder, got a full scholarship to go to state schools for that. So there's different programs that we have here in New York State depending on your family background. And I want to shift gears from the state to the colleges. Colleges who I think are the most important because, remember, they hold the keys to deciding how much of a discount you will get in the end from them. So with colleges, it's all in research and understanding how they work their system, how generous they are in their financial aid programs, and typically, what is the type of student that they're looking to give the most money to. So the first thing you need to know is to apply for institutional aid, it might be simple as doing a FAFSA and submitting your admissions application. Those two things will be used to review you for need-based and merit-based aid. But some other colleges go a level higher and they ask for the CSS profile. The CSS profile is available at collegeboard.org. You can start filling that thing out now. It became available October 1st. And it's sort of a FAFSA on steroids, where it's going to ask you a bunch of questions that FAFSA already asked you, plus a bunch of additional things about your family's financial situation. The CSS profile is good and bad at the same time. It's good on the one hand because it allows families to talk about their individual family spending situations. So we get a lot of families that say, well, on FAFSA I had to put that I make $120,000 a year, but I wasn't able to tell them that my mortgage is up here, is crazy, my credit card bills are out the roof, I have another kid that's going to private school, we're borrowing loans for them. Well, the CSS profile is the perfect application for you because they will have sections where you get to talk about your family expenses, including an open box where you get to put personal explanations where you feel like schools need to consider an individual special circumstance regarding your finances. So you get a little bit of room to tell your story on this thing. The bad side of the form is they're going to collect a lot of things that FAFSA didn't collect about you and also make different assessments of your finances. They will look at the value of your property, whether it's your primary, your secondary, it doesn't matter. They're going to look at all your property values. They're going to look at all of your accounts, including retirement account assets. They're going to consider those as well. So they're going to look at a lot of the things that FAFSA said were off limits. Nothing is off limits to the profile. Down to what kind of car you drive, what year you bought it, and how much you're paying for it right now. They want to know every stitch of your financial situation. So it's doing a 360-degree look at a family's finances. It could be very helpful for families, and it could hurt some families. It's helpful for the family if you have no skeletons in your financial closet. You know, you do a straight-up tax return, your family, your work, you pay your bills, you have nothing complicated about your finances, you're not a self-employed person, you get a salary, you're trying to make ends meet. The profile is going to be very nice to you. It's going to say, yeah, your family looks good on taxes, but we know you pay for a lot of stuff. A college may be willing to give you more aid than what FAFSA was. But if you are a self-employed person and you have a subchapter S corporation or a partnership, you file Schedule K-1s for your corporate tax returns. Now, some of you know what that is, some of you don't. So if you know what it is, then you're one of these families that has a more complicated financial situation. The profile is going to have a field day with you. The profile is going to make you file a business farm supplement statement and ask for all of your business taxes and business assets. It's going to value your business taxes and business assets. Even if you may pay yourself from your business only a small amount, they're going to say, well, we know you have this property as part of the business. We know you have this much cash flow coming through the business. And they might determine, I've had some families on the one hand, they're self-employed, they have a business, they do FAFSA, they get a Pell Grant. But when they do the CSS profile, their college gives them nothing because they say, we know through your business, you can afford to pay for this thing. You may want to run from a profile school if you think you're that type of family that you're going to look good on FAFSA. You may want to say, well, maybe SUNY is going to be good for us because SUNY doesn't ask for the profile. When you're looking at private schools, you may say, hey, PACE looks great, they don't ask for the profile, but Fordham, uh-oh, profile school. So you may want to make some decisions, and that's what any financial advisor would tell you. They'd say, you're either good to do the profile, it's going to help you out a lot, or you should run from a profile school because they're going to nail you, and it's designed for that purpose. Now, after they ask for every stitch of your finances and a blood sample, they're going to say, pay us some money. They're going to say, here's a fee. It's not free because it's the College Board. There's the SAT people. They charge $25 to submit an application for one college and a $16 fee to add additional schools. So you'll pay a $16 fee for every school you need to add beyond the one that you paid. Yeah?
How is the home value determined?
So that's a very good question because it comes to other questions like how is your car's value determined, right? Now when you're putting the value, they're going to ask you to put when did you buy the home, what year, what was the price you paid for it, what is it worth now, and what's the mortgage on the property, right? What's the outstanding debt? So you'll be able to look at your mortgage statement, put most of that info on there, and what they're going to do is they're going to look at it and they're going to do their own private determination of how they think that helps or hurts your ability to pay for college. Now they may see if your property's underwater, you don't have any equity, then they may say for you, well, a home equity loan wouldn't be in your future, right? you might be struggling more than a family who has full equity in their property. Another college may not even look at that part. The CSS profile is just collecting as much data about a family as possible. They're packaging it up, they're sending it to the college, and then the college decides which pieces of it they want to look at. So at the school I used to work, when I worked at Fordham, we didn't look at your car. I didn't care what kind of car you drove. We didn't even really look that much at home value, right? But some other schools, they might care a heck of a lot about what kind of car you drive. Maybe they think you drive Lexus and Mercedes, that you might be able to pay more for college. College might even tell you to sell that Porsche, you know, to pay for your kid's college. I know somebody who sold a parent that once. So it's you know, it's from school to school. Unlike FAFSA, when you submit FAFSA, FAFSA will tell you this is what we think you can contribute for college. Your EFC is this, so you'll be very upset. You'll know right away. Wow, they're screwing me over. With this, it's going to go into a black hole, and you won't know. You won't know if it was good for you. You won't know if it was bad for you, and the schools are going to keep it very private. When you get your financial aid award letter, that's when you'll know whether it was good for you or not. So they'll then explain to you in the award letter, based on our institutional calculations, we think you were eligible for this, and you'll either be happy or sad. So I can't really tell you how they look at these things in profile. I can't really tell you if one school's going to look at this part or not. We don't know. Yeah.
How do they balance, the schools that take both, how do they balance, like, how do they evaluate?
So they're gonna basically take the FAFSA view, and they're gonna say, well, according to the FAFSA and the federal side, they think the family can pay this. And they're gonna try to compare that to, on the CSS profile side, how did that come out, and see how the numbers relate. If your numbers are very close, they're gonna be like, this is a very straight up income situation, and they're gonna give you something that you'll expect. Because you'll expect from your FAFSA that you qualified for a certain amount of money, and you may get exactly that amount of money. But if you don't get exactly that amount of money, maybe they thought you needed more help based on your profile versus your FAFSA, or maybe they thought you should pay more. So they're comparing the two. If you qualify for SAT fee waivers, you could also qualify for CSS profile waivers. It's a new thing with the College Board. They're just starting to tell councils about it. They're trying to attach the eligibility for SAT fee waivers for the CSS profile this year. So you got to give them a call if you don't have. Sometimes they automatically grant the fee waivers. If you're not granted a fee waiver, but you were given a fee waiver for the SAT, then you want to see Ms. Burkett, and she will make a call for you and find out how they can get that fee waived. They're supposed to be attaching vouchers. Here's the profile website, so you know you go on the right website, collegeboard.org. What I just tell you is Google it. Google CSS profile, bring it right here. If you're wondering which colleges you have to do this for, they have a list of participating colleges on the same page. You can just download the list, A to Z, see who needs it. Most of our popular private schools in New York, Fordham, Columbia, Cornell, NYU, Vassar, University of Rochester, they ask for the CSS profile. Syracuse, many of our schools ask for it. The other way you can find out is by simply doing your research on the college's website. I always tell families, I always tell students, I'm always quizzing them like, well, do you know how much your college costs? Do you know how much financial aid they give? And they're always like, but then I ask them like, do you know how much the new iPhone 6s Plus costs? Well, yes, it's $899, but if you finance through Apple, they'll give you for $40.52 per month. And I'm already in active negotiations with my parents to get the new phone. The same way they know how much their phone is going to be or what this costs, they should have the same skill to look up how much these colleges are going to cost and start researching. Because that's how you want them. If I was a student, if I were negotiating with my family, I'd be like, look, well, if I apply to this college, they actually have a scholarship program that I might be able to get. So maybe I should add this to my college list. You know, you want them to do the research. You want to do your research. And was mentioned before, there are price calculators to give you an estimate, cost calculators, they call it net price calculator, on these same websites where you can find out estimates. Now the question was raised before, well, how accurate are these things? Do they give you a good view? What I'll tell you in all honesty, this was a federal requirement. So President Obama signed an executive order that colleges need to have this so families have some way of shopping around for colleges and having some way of estimating what the costs are going to be. Now, you know when someone's ordered to do something by the federal government, maybe you're a business owner, you might be able to relate to this. You're either happy to do it because it fits within your business model, or you are going to do it kicking and screaming. Now, if you do it kicking and screaming, you're going to just have the bare bones requirements. You're going to make sure you just met whatever minimum requirements they needed. Now, some schools, if you notice, their calculator is very bare bones. Your estimate's probably not going to be very good. But you'll notice some other schools, when you're on there, they'll ask for a lot of information. They'll say, oh, what's your kid's grade point average right now? What's this? What's that? They'll take so many pieces of information, you might get a more spot-on estimate. They're all going to have a disclaimer that's going to say this is just an estimate, you may get more, you may get less. They use it based on historical trends for families with your income profile, so it gives you some idea, and if it's, like I said, if it's very extensive, it might be a very good estimate. It's just part of your toolbox. It helps remove some of the surprises when it comes to aid qualifications. So moving to our last topic of the evening, and I know this has been a little exhaustive, we want to cover the private scholarships just really quickly, because you heard a little bit about this, so this will be very fast. I always encourage families to look at this, because this will level the playing field for families that feel they don't qualify for need-based programs. I have a lot of high-income families that do get free money for their kids because they know how to leverage the merit-based and private scholarship system. You really want to make sure, if I know, and I'm going to know, I have two young ones. I always hear families now worried that NYU costs $72,000. Well, for my 4-year-old daughter, if she wants to go there, let's see what NYU costs 14 years from now. It's going to be probably over 6 figures. But anyway, if you know that you're not going to qualify for a Pell Grant, you know when you do an estimate you're not going to qualify for TAP, then I would spend the next weeks and months as I'm looking for information for colleges, spending my time and energy applying on merit-based programs. I would dedicate 1 or 2 evenings a month to make sure my child is on websites like these, FastWeb, College Board, scholarships.com, and many others that are listed in your handouts, thanks to the lovely work of your counseling staff here. To make sure that they're looking for every available opportunity that has nothing to do with your income, that's offered as a merit-based scholarship opportunity. And you may find out that they win a couple of these things, and in the end, you'll be happy because you won't have to come out of your pocket, right? It might even offer students, if you're a lower income student, sometimes I have lower income families that think, well, we're going to qualify for federal and state assistance. Federal and state assistance is great if you're going to go to a local college and live at home for 4 years. But even for a low-income family that wants to send their child to a SUNY school, you still need 10 grand after your grants. So the family still ends up borrowing, just like a higher income family would end up borrowing. You want to make sure your child is looking for scholarships so they don't go too far into debt. When you're doing these things, local is always the best place to start. You have local resources here they put together for you on Naviance. That's where you would start, and then you branch out to national programs. And as was mentioned before, protect yourself in this process. If a scholarship company solicits you by phone or by mail, ask for a charge, make sure you've done your research. Scholarships are looking to give away money, not collect application fees. That's pretty much the rule of thumb. If somebody's asking you to pay a fee for financial aid reasons, be careful, don't pay it, or double check to make sure it's authentic. The only one that's going to charge is a CSS profile. That's pretty much the only one financial aid form that students might end up paying for in the end. And some other ones that ask for a processing fee. So you just want to double check to make sure. Usually in the admission side is where you spend most of your money for admissions applications. For financial aid, there are ways that most low-income families don't have to pay anything. For help with the process, use the resources here. You're at a school that's been commended for their work in helping students with this process. Use the free resources. I know some families that contract financial advisors to do this. My best friend is such person who I've been trying to convert from the dark side to the light side of the force, because he, at this time of the year, makes tons of money off families that are nervous. Fill out my CSS profile, no problem. He'll do it for $300. Help me with my FAFSA. He'll help you. $50 an hour. Consult you about financial aid, and a lot of this stuff you can do by yourself. He charges families, I think, down in the city like $300-400 for FAFSA, and he just downloads your taxes with a couple clicks with the IRS retrieval tool. And he's laughing at families. He's like, I can't believe these guys pay me this, and I keep telling him, you can't do this, you can't do this. But he's like, hey, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a CPA, it's how I make my money, it's how I feed my kids. Hey, that's how the world works. I tell you not to work with him, right? I tell you, save your money, and you can do it by yourself, or if you need help with anything, use the resources that are available to you here at school. After you file your applications, let's talk about timing. March, April is when you start hearing back from colleges. You might hear back that they need more info from you. That's normal. Some colleges use something called IDOC, where you have to scan or email or transmit electronically copies of tax transcripts or tax returns and other financial information. It's a normal process. Make sure you respond to those requests in a timely manner. The whole goal is that to get your financial aid process, you know when you get the award letter from the college. Some colleges aim to give you an admission and financial aid decision at the same time. So when you get the congratulations, you've been accepted, usually the second page is your financial aid award letter with the offer from the college. You want to break that down, never look at the total, look at the programs. You want to make sure that you get the free money total, and that's going to tell you how interested this college is with you. So I always tell families, when you're applying to private schools, the level of free money you get, think of it like the level of interest or recruitment, just like a sports team. I give you more money because I want you on my team. If I want you in my college, I'm going to give you more money, whether you need it or not. You might be surprised that you think you're not going to get anything. College throws $40,000 at you. I had a student early admitted they got a $55,000 scholarship to Syracuse already because and the family doesn't even need the money, but they want them for the architect program. So these are things that can happen. Now, a note on early decision, early action. We already mentioned that it's something that we would tell the low-income family to be careful of, because if they don't offer you enough aid, you might be committing to a school that's not going to support the student financially. You may also set yourself up for disappointment at colleges that are need-sensitive when they admit. Some colleges will deny the brightest student in the world admission to their college because they perceive that the family's low income and is going to need a lot of aid that they're unwilling to give. Some colleges, like Colgate, for example, are very upfront about this. Colgate has less than 2% of their student body is low-income students. And that's for a reason. Not because there aren't any smart low-income students applying to their school, it's because they deny a lot of smart low-income students from applying to their school by the nature of their program. So you need to know if your lower income, is it need blind or need sensitive? And you also need to be aware of the decision, if you apply early action, early decision. Now, if you're looking for merit-based aid, you may want to apply early action because you want to find out if that college is going to accept you and you're first in line to get a merit-based scholarship, right? Because you're the first to apply. But if they give you enough money and they say it's binding because you do ED, you do early decision, you might find out a few weeks and months later that another college gave you a better scholarship. But guess what? You're now committed to that other school, right? Because you went early decision. So always know the ins and outs, always read the legal agreement, and make sure you're making wise decisions about applying early. Thank you. Questions? Yes?
On the point you just made there, on common application where they're asking that they're going to be looking for an e-based aid, can you give different answers to different schools?
So for Common App, they're going to get all the data that you put on that one application. So you would know, if you did your research, and you found out ahead of time that, let's say it's Colgate or another particular college that says, we are going to be looking at financial aid requests as part of our decision whether to admit your kid or not, I would tell you not to include them on the Common App. I would tell you to do their standalone application and not check off the box on their application that says, are you applying for financial aid, right? Because if you know you got 10 colleges you're applying to, 9 of them are okay, they're all need blind, they don't care if you apply for financial aid or not, then you want to put those on the Common App and then take the bad guys out and put them separately if you think you're going to, if that checkoff box is going to hurt you, because they will see it. Everybody's going to see what you put on the Common App.
And you can't change the answer on that after between early action and normal applications?
The substance of, my understanding is the substance of your common application cannot change once you hit submit once.
So yeah, that's pretty much how I understand it too. They get the report, it's kind of like they could see it, it's frozen in time, yeah.
Is there a list somewhere of which schools are need blind?
That's a wonderful question. There isn't an official list because some schools do not want to make that public information. There are amateur lists that you'll find on blogs. My wife is my wife is a journalist, so she's like a mommy blogger. You will find all these college blogs. If you start doing some Google searches, Google search lists of need-sensitive colleges, schools that are they use 2 terms, need-sensitive and need-aware.
I was going to say, I would say most need-blind colleges will be shouting it from the rooftops. Anytime you go on campus, it'll be on their website. They're very proud of the fact that they're need-blind. If you're not hearing it from a college, that's when you maybe have to think twice about it. And
some publicly say, there was an article in the Times maybe a year or 2 ago about Grinnell College and some other schools that were trying to be now more upfront about their need awareness policies, their need-sensitive policies. And so some schools will say it up front, and Colgate is one that says it up front. You ask them to say, yeah, we do consider that checkoff box when we decide whether or not to bring your kid or not. It's a double-edged sword too. Sometimes families will use that to their advantage. Let's say you're a middle higher income family and you're worried at college you might be borderline to get your kid into a school like Colgate, right? What you do is you check off the box that you're applying for aid and you show them your income. and they say, hey, wait, this family can pay for half the thing. They may admit your kid now a little bit quicker to admit your kid, even though they're borderline, because they think you can pay for it. So some families have learned to use it to their advantage. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It hurts the lower income family, but the higher income families have started to use it to their advantage to show schools what they make, so that way they can get a little leg up to get their kid into these certain colleges that do the practice. You know, with these colleges, it's their private money. They can use whatever practices, as fair or unfair we think they are, and you just need to be careful of it. And when you do your research, you're looking at these websites, really look at the philosophy of the college. A lot of these Ivy League schools, and even schools that are like University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, University of Chicago, they have really good need-based financial aid programs where if they see you're in an income bracket, they will guarantee either they pay for everything or a big percentage of it, and some schools guarantee 0 loans for families that make below a certain amount. That would be a school I would be comfortable applying for early decision to, or early action, because I know if I'm in that income bracket, I make less than this amount that they say, then I'm going to get a lot of money from my kid. You would know that by doing the estimate, by doing the net price calculator, the cost calculators, right? Some other schools are more mysterious about it, and the more mysterious they are, the more worried I would be with that particular college. And we know from years of doing this, certain schools that are always schools that, you know, are not so friendly with their financial aid as we think they would be. And some of them are very popular schools that have a lot of money and are a little stingy in the end with their families. So we won't mention those because we are being recorded. But if you have conversations with, you know, fellow parents, with the counseling staff, they can tell you in their experience if a certain college has been good for financial aid for their students, or if it's been a little bit, you know, stingy with students. Yeah.
Is there a maximum amount of student loans that a student can borrow per year?
That's a wonderful question. So there is, because the government doesn't want to let 18 and 19-year-olds borrow tons of money without any credit or anything to secure that debt. So those subsidized and unsubsidized loans are typically what you would see, and the maximum for a first-year freshman is $5,500, $5,500. A very small, modest amount. At a SUNY school, that might pay a big part of the difference. At a private school, it's a drop in the bucket, depending on how much they cost. At private schools, typically, federal loans, the biggest amount being borrowed is by the parent. They would gap you an amount that they think, we call it gapping, where they give you free money, give your kid a loan, and then they say this is unpaid. And hey, here's a plus loan that you could take to pay for it. And so that's where we see the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year. It's coming out of parents' pockets. Now, if you can't do that, remember, take whatever they offer you in loans, multiply that by 5, because that's how many years now, on average, it's taking kids to finish college is 5 years now instead of 4. And so if you're borrowing $30,000 a year for 5 years, well, you're going to come out at the end with $150,000 in debt, and you might as well have bought yourself a nice condo somewhere with that money. Maybe not in New York City, but maybe somewhere out west, Midwest or something like that. I don't know. But you just basically, whatever you borrow is on a 10-year repayment schedule. So if you borrow $100 grand for your kids for their college, you're going to be paying $1,000 a month for the next 10 years. You could lower that to $800 if you want to pay 15. You could lower that down to $600 if you want to pay over 20, 25 years. They will garnish your retirement. They'll garnish your Social Security. They'll garnish, you know, they'll go after. And there are tons of stories. There was even something in the New York Times about parents that are in their older years still struggling to pay back the parent loans that they borrow for their kids.
What is it for the second year, sophomore year?
So it'll grow by about 1,000. So second year they'll get 6,500, and then the third and fourth year they'll automatically be guaranteed for 7,500. If you're denied the parent loan, they can increase by $4,000 to $5,000. So you could reach $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 if you're being denied credit for the plus loan. Parents need to pass a credit check to get the plus loan. Students just borrow it by signing up for FAFSA. And once they fill out additional agreements, they have to do counseling, they have to do a master promissory note, then they receive the loan, and it's in their name, and parents are not responsible for any student-owned debt. It's your child's responsibility after they graduate. Yeah, and then I'll come here.
What about twins? You have twins applying?
So twins, you get the division automatically, right? So some families have to wait a year or more. My kids are 3 years apart, so I only have it for the benefit for 1 year. You'll have the benefit for every year that when you file each of their financial aid forms, you get to indicate that they have a sibling in college, and your income and assets that they review will automatically be split in half. So you're already in that half eligibility. So you might be in a good point already having twins, having multiples, because you know, you'll get that division.
And then
You
if
need
you
to,
have three, it's
you have triplets, and hey, and if you're Aquamom, you're really good. So you get that automatic division of income when you're sending 2 or more to college at the same time.
great.
You just have to do, each of them have to do their own unique FAFSA TAP application,
Okay.
but you indicate that they have a sibling.
And on the CSS, is that also?
Same thing, they their own CSS profiles, but you indicate that they have a sibling. Do they divide for the CSS profile? Some do, some don't. I don't know, because remember, I don't know what they do with the profile.
For New York TAP, if there are 2 residences, do they just look at the primary residence as well?
In terms of evaluating the value of the property?
You said you just put in line whatever it was.
Well, yeah, line 37 is your New York State adjusted gross income, which is a derivative of your federal AGI. You get your state deductions off of that.
Do they look at both parents or one parent?
So if you are a joint household, you have both parents together, then they would look at the combined. But if you're a single parent household, they want only the custodial parents' figures. And that is defined as the one that lives with the kids. If you have 50-50 custody, sometimes that question comes up, then you're basically going to decide who's the custodial parent. You get a little bit of an advantage. Now, you can only do that if you live relatively close to the school district. You know, if dad lives in Buffalo, makes no money, and mom lives here in Mamaroneck, and that's where the kids go to high school, you try to say, oh no, they live with dad. That's a very tough commute every day to get to school. So they probably wouldn't believe that dad is the custodial parent, right? But if you both live in the town, you live close to the school district, and it's 50-50, then you're going to use that to your advantage. You could choose a lower income parent if it's 50-50 custody, because you don't have a clear determination of who's the custodial parent. They'll tell you by rule you're supposed to use the high income parent. But I always say that it's a family decision. They can't verify where the kids live, right? Unless, like I said, it's a ridiculous address, disparity, where you live in one place, the other parent lives in another. Yes?
Does that apply to CSS as well?
CSS collects both parents, remember, so it doesn't matter if dad lives in the North Pole and you live in New York. If you're the custodial parent or dad's a custodial parent, either way they will get the other parent on the non-custodial parent part. So you could decide who's going to be the custodial, and then the other parent gets to decide I'm the non-custodial, but you'll both be putting your information eventually. Other questions? Okay. Well,
Thank you very much.
This is our agency